Like, share, subscribe to my channel. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. Please do that for me real quick. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. Uh, I'd like to keep it absolutely uh, 100 or a buck, as they say. So if you could do that for me initially, that would really help me out 100%, kind of get things in its proper context for future references. So absolutely, I would really appreciate if you do that. I give you a moment to do that. Like, share, subscribe. To properly introduce myself, I'm your field by Lagoon. I consider myself very much so to be a street reporter, a storyteller, or whatnot. And I talk about some of the adventures of myself and my comrades and things of that nature. Um, so I want to talk about when I first met Rakim Balagoon. When I first met him, uh, we was we was out training. We used to train. When I say we used to train, we used to do like martial arts training at the MLK Library. And if you're from Dallas, then you know a little bit about the MLK Library. So Martin Luther King, obviously. And we would be out in front of it. At this location, we would do political education too. But it was all outside. And for the most part, it would be like Saturday mornings, some time frame like that is when most time we would meet. We would meet up and have this conversation. Read "Blood in My Eye" by George Jackson. Read "To Die for the People" by Huey P. Newton. Uh, read something by some writings by Kwame Nkrumah or Che Guevara. Writings like that is what we would read on these Saturday mornings, and we thought that it was best to be a little different was to incorporate some sort of physical fitness after we did a reading. So we would do a collective reading at the MLK library on the outside though, not the inside, on the outside. And then we would do some physical fitness. And at the time, I took and some other folks took what's called Goju, which is a karate system from Japan. That's a Japanese karate system from Japan, empty hand karate for the most part, and which includes katas and that sort of thing, and a lot of movements or whatnot. We had the experiences because we trained with a brother by the name of Keith Sharp uh, and a couple of other masters. Well, I should say a couple other folks who trained the master of Goju, the founder of Goju, directly in Japan. And so these folks came back and sort of trained us and Goju and Shotokan. That's kind of what we was doing. So I was kind of helping with that. Although being completely honest at this point, I probably wasn't qualified in a sense, but I knew enough about Goju to at least show some initial movements or whatnot, which I did do. And I remember, you know, this dude coming up behind me. He had two females with him at the time. He had two females with him, and he came up behind and he was just observing. And he must have observed for like 10 or 15 minutes, that sort of thing. He had to observe about 10 or 15 minutes of his time, and then he made some minor uh, interjection. Now, of course, he did ask if he could do it, and I said, "Yeah, go ahead." And he kind of chimed in, but that's how I came into contact with Rakim. That's how I came into contact with Rakim. It's the first time I met him. I had heard about him previously from Erick Khafre. Erick Khafre, that's his. They grew up together. At least a portion of their time was when they were smaller. So that's how I kind of heard about him. And then I didn't meet him until a little bit later. And I had been hearing about him for some time. That at some point he was gonna pull up, and seemed like he from Eric that he never would. But like all of a sudden on this particular day, which is more than likely on a Saturday morning slash afternoon, he pulled up. And he pulled up, and you know, from that moment on, it seemed like he was always attached to what we had going on from that moment on, from that first initial meeting. Now, if you've been around some for some time, you know how you got people that come and they fall off and they gone. You know that didn't happen in this case. He came and he stuck with it and he rolled with it all the way. And the thing of the matter is that our issues really became his issues. He really kind of took on kind of our perspective for the most part of what his positions were politically. You know what I mean? Now, I know that he'd had some experiences with studying Chairman O'Malley. I think he did that. Chairman O'Malley out of St. Petersburg. I think he had some experiences with that, and so we didn't necessarily, I would say, fill his cup, but we definitely did kind of uh, give him a way to act out his, for lack of a better term, his rhetoric. We gave him a way we gave him a path to show him how to put into action what he had been reading about, put into action what he had been studying under Chairman O'Malley Yeshitela. Because at that particular time, there was no NPDUM chapter in Dallas. There was an attempted chapter back in 2007. Diak Olubala, he came to Dallas. Um, I was part of the group that brought him to Dallas, and he spoke at a couple of events, and he was trying to set up a chapter in Dallas. The problem was is that there wasn't a whole lot of folks, and there wasn't a whole lot of groups at that particular time, and frankly, there wasn't enough of a interest to maintain it. There was a couple of folks that tried for a short periods of time. Uh, at this particular time, I was full throttle GMF Gorilla Mainframe. I was full throttle GMF Gorilla Mainframe. So even though I supported what would have became the NPDM chapter, I was more so dedicated to doing our thing, which is really authentically from Dallas, Texas. That's important to mention because I feel as though the local, the local organizing in many ways is a lot more important than, let's say, you traveling to Chicago or St. Louis or Florida somewhere, a city that you're not from. I think it's a lot better that you're organized in the city that you're from, so that the people there can absolutely respect who you are as a person, who you are, and what your position is. And I think you'll go a lot further with that. At least that's my opinion. Uh, with that being stated, with that being stated, uh, his focus initially was trying to help, get us on par with security. Okay, I remember one particular time, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. He came to Dallas, Texas, and Rakim, also Kamalo Zane, folks like that was right there. They secured Chairman Fred from the moment we got into the airport. We took Chairman Fred to Dixon Circle, uh, 2012, where James Harper, who I just mentioned in the previous video, had been murdered by Dallas police officer Brian Rowden. And because of that murder, and because of the potential rebellion that almost took place in South Dallas, because there was over 3, 4, 500 people that was outside at one particular time, I had never at that time seen anything like that as far as the city is concerned. Just because it was nearly a rebellion, we thought it would be keen when we brought Chairman Fred. Let's take him to Dixon when James Harper was shot in the back. I believe this happened on June 24th, 2012, if my memory serves me correct. And so we brought Chairman Fred right after, but Rakim was his point person for security at that particular time. He was the point person. He was the kind of person that stayed on him. In addition to Kamalo saying, in addition to myself and one other person, we kind of made sure and rotated and made sure. And there's a video on YouTube If you look up Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. at Pan African Connection, uh, well, that's us doing security uh, for the event at that particular time. That was us. We basically did. Yeah, we brought him. We did security. We took him back to the airport, picked him up from the airport, housed him. Everything that we need to do, we did that time. And as I stated, um, from there, we also had a venue in Austin. So he spoke in Dallas and Austin. We was part of both of those things. We organized both of those things. There's a venue in Austin called the Arun Center. And if you're from Austin, Texas, maybe you've heard of it. But I don't know if it's still around. That was about 14 years ago. So that's interesting. If it is still around, the Arun Center. But the objective was for us to be able to get Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. here to speak about police brutality, and Rakim was right there with it. So I say that all to say is, in terms of how I met him, he had come forward to me as a person through Erick Khafre, and then from Erick Khafre, started helping us do like little security things and trainings and whatnot. And that's how we initially got in contact. And what we provided him was further political education. What we provided him was a further outlet on how to act out the things that he had read about. And obviously, it doesn't take long if you really want to be active in the community. There's a million one issues. And I will tell you this is that there's more than enough space, more than enough issues for 1,000 organizations almost in a large city. I would challenge a person to at least join one organization, maybe join a couple to help with the process if that's something that you're interested in. Don't be afraid to do it. At that particular time, we were just a few people. We were just a few people that was doing political education, a few people that uh, was doing some physical training. But what we basically put together over after that, over the next 5 to 7 years after that, really affected like militant culture uh, in this country as far as black people is concerned. We was really able to influence it and make things palatable or tasteful. We was able to do it, but it all started, at least from my perspective, it all started from things that we did here in Dallas, Texas. That's where it started from. It was things that we did at the MLK Center. It was things we did at the Pan African Connection. It was the conversation that we had with the elders and whatnot. That's what made us successful, and that's what sort of kind of influenced these current movements that's going on now. Um, that 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 some folks would call it cosplay in a sense. I think a lot of groups now really lack the political educational substance. They lack it, and so hopefully they'll get it. But you can only get it through political education and application of what you understand as a collective. I think that you gotta have a cadre. It has to be a cadre based group. That's the best group to organize with in these times. So do me a big favor, like, share, subscribe to my channel. I just really want to talk about how I initially met him, how we initially come in contact is through Erick Khafre, and I seen him in person, and then he wanted to help with the training, and then he kind of took over, if you will. I'm the type of person I let a person if it's something that you want to do, I have no problem letting a person do what they're good at. And that's what we have to do. We have to get out our ego and we have to allow people to do what they're good at. And that's something that he's really good at. So do me a big favor, like, share, subscribe to my channel. You fail by Lagoon, you fail by Lagoon. You know, I can't pronounce it enough. Some people say you fool, some people say Yafa. I've heard it all up until this point, but it's pronounced Yafeo, and of course, last name Balagoon. Like, share, subscribe to my channel. Like, share, subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I'm a student of Bandeli Tayumba, you know, uh, and I'm also a student of the original Black Panther Party here in the city of Dallas, the original Black Panther Party. Fahim J. Minka, uh, Marvin Crenshaw, Skip Shockley, Akatunde Franzo, these guys whose story, Charles Beasley, these guys whose story, I'm going to make sure to tell it. So like, share, subscribe to my channel. It'll be greatly appreciated if you do. Catch you on the next one.